USC football's defense could be even worse next year. UCLA, that whole thing about running it back, UCLA football takes it a little bit seriously. And Paul George turns up limp for the Clippers. Ruh-roh. Good morning. I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos morning report. It is January 5th, 2023. After much wailing and gnashing of teeth, I have got replacement equipment so we can start broadcasting again. Woohoo! We are back at Ice Station Bravo, just one little slide across the ice to the local porn store. It's a beautiful thing. It's really quite lovely when you're by yourself. We also added a new subscriber to the Angelino Familia yesterday. Thanks to everybody who gets in on the ground floor. And if you like the content we put out about LA sports, clickety-clack the like button. Clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It'll let you know when we drop new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And yeah, comment. It's good to be back. Before we go through the news and notes, we will look at the scoreboard. No LeBron James. No Anthony Davis, but all the Dennis Schrader you could possibly want in your life. He scored 32 points, and the Lakers posted a 112-109 upset victory over the Miami Heat. Meanwhile, today, some good stuff going on. USC versus UCLA in basketball. The 10th-ranked Bruins are hosting at 6:30. We'll talk a little bit more about that game in a minute. The Clippers are in Denver. That's at 7 o'clock. And Boston takes on the Kings at Crypto.com Arena at 7:30. So, you may have joined me and many other people in Trojan Nation, if you will, bewailing what's happened to the Trojans' defense in the last month or so under Alex Grinch, the defensive coordinator. In the last 4 games alone, they've surrendered more than 2,000 yards. 3 of the last 4 games they played, they allowed more than 40 points. And then you take a look at who's leaving. And this is going to be a problem. Defensive lineman Tuli Tuipulotu has declared for the NFL draft. Big loss for the Trojans. He led the nation in sacks last year with 13 and a half. He was also the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. His older brother Marlon already plays in the NFL for the Philadelphia Eagles. In addition to that, cornerback Mekhi Blackman also declared. He intercepted 3 passes, 45 solo tackles for USC. See, the Trojans, their talent overall wasn't good on defense. I think we can all acknowledge that. But Tuipulotu and Blackman could play. They could play well. And the incoming class for the Trojans on defense, they're bringing a couple of linebackers. But what about edge rusher? What about cornerback? And then you add Alex Grinch to the equation. Just thought I'd give you a couple of sleepless nights during spring ball, guys. Unless USC really rallies in the transfer portal, next year's team could easily be worse on defense. Just saying. Though, by the way, the Trojans are also going to be missing the next year defensive lineman Brandon Peely and Nick Figueroa. So, yeah, not good times for USC football on the defensive side coming up. You know, there's a cliche in football that you always hear teams and coaches, the players, they always wear the T-shirt with the little uplifting slogan. It says, yeah, we don't rebuild, we reload, right? UCLA is actually reloading. You look at the way that they've been approaching the transfer portal, and you tell me what this sounds like. They dipped into the transfer portal, which, by the way, is how they acquired Zach Charbonnet to run the football. Well, Charbonnet has already used up his college eligibility. So then UCLA goes out and gets the number 9 rusher in the country, a guy from Ball State named Carson Steele. Carson Steele. We'll get back to that in a moment. Carson Steele rushed for 1,556 yards and 14 touchdowns last year. So I'm sure he's going to be somebody that you can plug and play right into the Chip Kelly offense without even having to think about it. But that name, Carson Steele. See, I don't normally like to talk about people's names, right? I think it's a little bit too weird, a little too personal. But dude, are you coming to Hollywood because that name just sounds a little bit too much like a B-list action movie star? Carson Steele. I mean, what are we talking about, dude? Don't get me wrong. Welcome to LA. Glad you're here. I'm serious though. Can't you just imagine like the UCLA film department going over to Warner Brothers and saying, "We got a story to pitch you. He's a hard-scrabbled New York cop whose wife was kidnapped by terrorists. His name is Carson Steele." Yeah. Maybe I'm a little bit too jaded from the years that I spent in Hollywood. Carson Steele just sounds a little bit too cliche for a B-list action movie. You don't even have to go for Carson Steele when you run behind UCLA's offensive scheme. You could put Remington Steele back there and you'd get results. You'd be moving the chains. Yes, I am recommending that you put Pierce Brosnan behind the UCLA offensive line and you can still move the chains on third down. That's where I'm going. Paul George tweaked his hamstring a couple of nights ago playing for the Clippers. And yeah, we're going to have to see how he responds to treatment, man. LA plays the Clippers, as we mentioned earlier. They play tonight over in Denver, and Denver likes to run. The problem, obvious, when Kawhi Leonard does not play, which is often, everything flows through Paul George. Everything. Now you're missing your possibly missing your top two players. Clippers do that way too much, man. There's just no nice way to say it. They just do that way too much. Meanwhile, Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN reported last night that Anthony Davis is relatively pain-free. We already had a pretty good idea of that from Davis's own words recently. But he is also now running, testing out how his injured foot is responding to it. What he hasn't done next, however, is jump to see how his foot will respond to that. What are you going to say? With Anthony Davis, when he's coming back, it's always baby steps. But if it's progress, it's progress. Meanwhile, Coach Darvin Ham told The Athletic that Lonnie Walker, the team's third leading scorer, has tendonitis in his left knee. Yikes. Tendonitis is something that's chronic, which means they could be dealing with it for a very long time. Whether or not that means he has to tough it out or sit it out, it's all vague. Tendonitis is a very vague injury to put up with. Also, Troy Don't Call Me Tony Brown left last night's game with a left quad strain. We don't know necessarily how bad things are yet. We mentioned the USC-UCLA basketball game tonight, and I'm not going to get into too many details about it because, frankly, I think you look at both squads. This would be a hell of a game if Vincent Iwuchukwu, the freshman center, was playing this year instead of, unfortunately, suffering cardiac arrest during the summer. But even if Iwuchukwu was at full strength, and I'm not blaming the guy, come on, it's your heart. There's bigger things in life. I mean, just ask the Buffalo Bills, right? But even if Iwuchukwu was at full strength, the talent level, the attention to detail, the balance both on offense and defense. Dude, I like the cut of UCLA's jib. I like watching them play. I really do. No predictions, because obviously I thought UCLA football and USC football would win last weekend. I was wrong. UCLA is just more of a complete team. They pass well. They play defense better. They have names on their offense that shoot better than USC. But the other reason that I would really look forward to watching this game is because this is a game where USC has no choice but to throw everything they have at the Bruins. They can't afford many losses, or else they're going to miss the NCAA tournament. That loss last weekend to Washington State was a real slap in the face. LAFC has signed center back Aaron Long. This is a big pickup for the black and gold. He spent the last 7 years playing with New York Red Bulls. He also earned MLS Defensive Player of the Year back in 2018. Definitely was sought after by multiple clubs in the offseason. He's an Inland Empire guy. That might have indicated why he returned to Southern California. But to make room for Aaron Long, somebody had to go. And yesterday, LAFC traded one of their few remaining originals, midfielder Latif Blessing. He's going over to New York. The last original player with LAFC is Carlos Vela. Everybody else from that first year, gonzo. Now, Blessing said he actually requested a trade. It's not that he hates Los Angeles or the program or whatever. He's just not getting enough playing time anymore, which, by the way, is alarming if you're an LAFC supporter. They have forwards to just burn. They are really loaded at forward. They are loaded in the center back. But midfield depth is now a problem. It really is. And now they just traded Blessing away. When Blessing found out about the move, Blessing was so excited that he jumped longer than when Zlatan Ibrahimovic ran him over in 2019. So that's a pretty good idea of just how far Blessing went. He was so excited about going to New England. So kudos to him. Also, goaltender Maxime Crépeau, he will miss as much as the beginning 2 months of the season. That is because he is recovering from that gruesome broken leg that he suffered toward the end of MLS Cup. Hell of a price to pay for a ring, but can you blame him? I don't know. Would you go through a gnarly ass broken leg in order to get yourself a ring? A lot of us would say yes. But would you really? Just asking. Just asking. MLS insider Tom Bogert, meanwhile, is reporting that the LA Galaxy is closing in on a deal with center back Chris Movinga. Movinga is one of a number of players that used to play for Toronto FC back when Galaxy manager Greg Vanney led the Reds up in Toronto. So another familiar face, at least to Vanney, coming to LA. The LA Sparks have hired Karen Bryant as their GM. This is a change in approach for the two-time WNBA champions. You see, recently, head coach, or I should say former head coach, Derek Fisher also served as the GM. Everything ran through him. Once they fired him, LA decided to go the traditional route with one dude playing as the coach and get themselves their own general manager. Now, Bryant has her work cut out for her. She was part of the front office for the Seattle Storm for 15 years. She did win WNBA championships up there. The Sparks have 2 players under contract, under a long-term contract. They have 6 unrestricted free agents. They do not have a first-round draft pick. They also have the most amount of cap space in the WNBA going into the offseason. And I would argue that maybe their priority is to figure out what to do with Nneka Ogwumike, who is considered a top 10 free agent in the upcoming WNBA offseason. So they probably have the space to re-sign her. But do you do that when you consider the Sparks have missed the playoffs for the last couple of seasons in a row? Do you need a complete teardown and rebuild? Yes, I actually did take the WNBA seriously. Kudos to me. I am your social justice warrior on YouTube, yes. Former general manager turned athletic columnist Jim Bowden said that the Dodgers' next move will be for an outfielder. I'm not sure this is true because technically their next big decision is what the hell they're going to do with Trevor Bauer, but I understand your point, sir. I totally understand your point. By the way, the deadline to make a decision on Bauer, whether to cut him or whether to add him to the 40-man roster, that's tomorrow. So we're going to find out what the big decision is. Rams coach Sean McVay is loyal even to his part-time employees or short-timers. He is talking up Baker Mayfield like a middle manager, giving you the resume boost of a lifetime. Quote, I just know I think very highly of him, and I loved working with him, unquote. That was the least stomach-turning review of Baker Mayfield's play. Look, he's been decent for the Rams. I'm absolutely going to give him that. But man, you look at those quotes. If your boy was giving you that fake review on the phone to a potential employer, in the background, you're kind of like, dude, I appreciate you, but stop selling me so much. You're going to make it sound like I need to take 4 drug tests. You're making me sound too good to be true. But hey, everybody needs a job in this economy. ESPN noted that Chargers wide receiver DeAndre Carter sometimes works as a substitute teacher out in Compton. Cute little story. He was reading a student essay. What do you want to do with your life? The student wrote, when I grow up, I want to be a professional football player. To which Carter replied, crazy thing, me too. Not exactly, the most uplifting of stories, but cute nonetheless. Very cute. Carter is in his 5th year in the NFL. He's been a bit of a journeyman, but even as a journeyman, he makes $1.14 million with the Chargers, as opposed to $150 a day as a teacher. Make of that politically what you will. But you let me know what you think in the comments thread, because we had some catching up to do after the debacle of yesterday. What do you think about USC's defensive depth? Are you comfortable with losing Tuli Tuipulotu? What do you think about UCLA's running offense? What do you think about the basketball game tonight, for Pete's sakes? And don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos if you enjoyed this content. We talk LA sports every single day here. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Quian Corte El Queso production. Take care.